Hey guys, welcome to my first photography tutorial. So today I'm gonna show you how to use your camera. So let's go right into the video. 3 basic things you need to know about your camera: ISO, aperture, shutter speed. We'll start with aperture. Aperture can be defined as the opening in a lens through which light passes to enter the camera. It is most likely being compared to our own eyes. As we move between dark and bright places, our iris expands or shrinks. In photography, that pupil is called aperture. So basically, the lower the aperture, the more light comes in, and vice versa. Now take a look at this chart. As you can see, an f-stop like f16 represents a much smaller opening than f2.8. Because you gotta remember, aperture is a fraction. So 1/16th in fraction is clearly smaller than 1/4. The same reason why f16 is much smaller than f4. Your job is to control the amount of light that comes in your camera. But how do we do that? We have to pick the right aperture. How do we pick the right aperture? First, I'm gonna show you some diagram that I made to demonstrate the aperture differences. As you can see in the diagram, f5 is brighter than f22. Because the lower the aperture, the more light comes in, and vice versa. Now that you see the brightness differences, it is up to you to pick up your own aperture. Grab your camera, turn it on, and spin the button to manual mode. Your screen should look like this. Next, click the quick control button to select whether aperture, shutter speed, or ISO you want to change. Then, use the arrow buttons to go where you want it. Next, click set to choose your aperture. You can go left or right. It's your choice. I choose, for example, f11. I click set again for it to set to f11 aperture. Now that you set your aperture, we'll move on to shutter speed. What is shutter speed? Shutter speed is the length time camera shutter is open. The longer the shutter speed, the more your camera sensor gathers a lot of light. With that being said, the more brighter your photo will be. By using shorter shutter speed, the quicker your camera sensor gathers light and will result to a darker photo. Now take a look at this diagram that I made. This is how image brightness changes with shutter speed. Quicker or fast shutter speed is typically used in capturing actions like jump shots, fireworks, bulb, and so on. Also, shutter speed depends on how fast your subject is. If, for example, you're taking a shot of fireworks, you might want to change your shutter speed to 1/320 or faster. But you need to watch it carefully because, as you saw in the diagram earlier, the quicker the shutter speed, the darker the photo it gets. So, this is where your flexibility and creativity comes in. While longer shutter speed is typically used in a certain type of low light or night photography. This will take your patience to the next level. Because that's why it's called longer, this process is longer as well. So you have to be stabilized when you're doing it. So I suggest to use a tripod to help you stabilize your camera and you don't shake it by accident. How to set your shutter speed? Click the quick control button and click set. Now you're in shutter speed. You can go left or right. It's up to you. It's your choice. So now I am going higher, 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 higher until I find my perfect desired shutter speed. So now I found 50. I'm gonna use 50, click set, and tada! You have 1/50 shutter speed. Now that you know how to set your aperture and shutter speed, we'll move on to ISO. ISO function is basically the same with aperture and shutter speed. The only difference is ISO is your inner flash. So the higher the ISO, the farther the flash range will extend. So basically, the photo will get brighter. However, Raising your ISO has consequences. You can't trust only ISO to do the work for you, because a photo taken at a too high of an ISO will have more noise and might not be usable. I suggest to raise your ISO only when it's really needed, or when you can't find brightness on Aperture or ShutterSpeed. How to set your ISO. So you click that button right there, the ISO, and then it will lead you to the ISO area, and then now you have to select left or right. For example, I wanted 400, click set, and now you have ISO 400. Now that you know how to set your aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, it is now time for you to practice. So grab your camera, try mixing ISO, aperture, and shutter speed, and find the subject, take a shot on it, and see the difference. That's all I have for you today. If you want to learn more about photography, make sure to hit the bell button so you get notified whenever I post. If you have comments or suggestions, feel free to comment it down below and I will answer it on the next video. See ya! Peace!